Hi. Neurodivergence. What is that? Well, in this video, I'm going to give you a very brief definition, and I'm also going to give you my thoughts on neurodivergence and how you can gain an understanding of neurodivergence and open your mind and open your heart, and with a goal of helping you and helping the people around you, particularly in the workplace, but it's going to probably spill out over into your life as well. So understanding neurodivergence and learning about it has certainly helped me, and I want to share that with you in an effort to help you in your life, working years, and out here in the rest of the non-working world. So let me give you the definition as it is given to us by a website called Verywellmind. I will leave the link to this in the description below. It's really one of the first things that popped up when I Googled this. So, what is neurodivergence? Neurodivergence is the term for when someone's brain processes, learns, and or behaves differently from what is considered typical. So that's the official definition. Again, I'll leave the link below and give credit where credit is due there. But as I hear this now, later in my career, I realize that this is something that's been going on the whole time I've been on the planet, and certainly long, long before. I think if you think of it in one way, if you were the only person on the planet, at the same time, you would be the most beautiful, the most strong, the smartest, the wealthiest. It would just be you. But given the fact that we have other people on the planet, many, many, many other people, it's just undeniable that we're going to run into people who are different from the way we are. And neurodivergence is something that really begins to lay that out better than almost anything I've ever seen. So it's categorized in two ways: neurotypical and neurodivergent. So neurotypical, I guess, is defined as people who have a typical brain. Their brain functions and is formed in a typical fashion. And neurodivergent is those people who has a slightly different way of processing things, and their brain works in a different way. So that's about as far as I'm going to go with it technically, because I'm just learning about this. So you can learn as much as you want. There's a great deal of information on this. But what I want to give you in this video is that in the workplace, and part of this career series, inevitably you're going to run into people who think in a different way. They think differently from you. They process things differently. They have problem-solving processes that are different from you. And it's not to say that one way is right or wrong, but as you go through your career, you're going to have to think about how you work with other people. And my tips for you here are things that I've learned over the course of my 40 plus years in the workforce. Before I go any further, I want to say that in doing my research about neurodivergency, I realize that some of the people in my life who I love the most are undoubtedly neurodivergent. They are my best friends. They are my closest people. I would be absolutely lost without them. So I am the odd person out in my inner circle. I have a lot of neurodivergent people around me, and thank goodness that I do, because I'd be lost without them. So where we may think that neurodivergence is a handicap or a setback, as it was often thought of in the past, I want to help you understand that where you find people in the world who seem a little clunky, a little closed off, those are the people who have some brilliant trait or brilliant skill or some beautiful way of approaching something that you will learn from. And they've saved me time and time again. So what I want you to think about in this video is when you're in the workplace and you find that you need to work with someone who is different from you, you need to go back to the old concept of communication, right? You have a sender and you have a receiver. So if you are neurotypical and you're working with someone who's neurodivergent, you as the sender of information first need to spend some time thinking about how these people receive and process information. And then you're going to have to do, if you want to be successful here, what I've done my whole career. Is I adapt the way I send information to these people when I'm working with them. I learn how they learn. And that way I can send information in a way that they can process it, that they can get the most out of it, and that we can then benefit both from working in that environment. So you might say to yourself, well, why should I have to go to them? They should just have to learn my way of doing things. Believe me, that's a recipe for disaster. That's not going to work, because you're dealing with people who, if they're neurodivergent, they just have a different way of seeing the world and a different way of processing things. And what may be logical and normal to you may be very foreign to them, or they simply can't do that. So to be successful, you may have to go to neurodivergent people in a way that in the beginning lays the groundwork for how you're going to work together. Some of the things that have worked for me in the past is just always watching to see, if you're working with a new person, initial impressions. How are they processing things? How are they speaking? What's their body language like? And then if you're going to work with them, initially you can't really hit them with yourself full blast. It takes a while to build up a relationship, like any relationship. And then as you go along, you'll see, that might be a roadblock for someone, or they're struggling with this. Well, that's where you would come in and try to adapt and make things better, make things easier. Ultimately, if you can, and you might find that the time is right for this. Initially, you won't find that the time is right for this, but if you keep working with a person, you may get to a place where you say to a person, what can I do to make this better for you? Am I doing things that are helping you to process, to help us work together? Can I be delivering things in a way that's easier for you? Is it better for me to write things out? Are you able to hear things when I communicate and you don't need it written out? Do you want me to do things visually? Should we work together and just take little bits and pieces? However it works, you need to have an initial or ongoing meetings with people at the one-on-one level to find out how best to work with people who are neurodivergent. That's going to lead to success. That's what I've done. And after a while, you learn how to work together. Now, this recipe can work with two people who aren't neurodivergent, or just two people who are whatever. But in the topic of this video, this neurodivergence, which again is a new term for me, and I'm learning about it in a way that I never learned about it before. But where I've been successful with this in the past is to understand that not everyone thinks the same way I do. And I think if you remember anything from this video, that's a great starting place when you're entering into an understanding about neurodivergence. Is that, yes, you are you and you understand you to a certain extent, but it's not really fair or right to expect the rest of the world to understand you when they don't know you. And everyone's inside their own shell here, so we need to take the time to learn one another and work with one another. So neurodivergence is something that you are inevitably going to run into. There are categories of neurodivergency. of neurodivergence, where there'll be visual signs that are obvious that someone is, thinking in a different way. But the thing that I want to focus on here and help you with is that it's not always obvious. You may see a person's outer appearance and say, well, that person's perfectly normal, whatever that means, or in this case, neurotypical. They have no outward sign of being neurodivergent. And it takes a while to work with them to understand that they do have this neurodivergence. Or if they're a young adult or an adult, they may have somehow learned how to mask it, to kind of default to what they think is normal, and you wouldn't see it until you start working with them long-term or closely. So for those people who fall into the camp of neurotypical, I would ask that you spend time learning about people who are neurodivergent and learn to work with them. As I've said, to a person, every person in my life who's neurodivergent is open-hearted and open-minded. They're not angry people. They're brilliant. They're willing to work with you. So it really just takes a small effort to say, how can I deliver things to you in a way that helps you process them so that we can work together as a team here at work? You may be good at writing. They may not be good at writing. You may be good with the visual aspect. You may be good with presenting. They may not. They may be shy. They may be sort of afraid to speak in public. But they might be brilliant problem solvers. Chances are they're brilliant problem solvers. So when you think about this term, I would ask that you take a little bit of time and look into it, because it is something that is really becoming more and more pronounced in the workplace, and something you're going to work into. It's going to work with, so it's going to work in your benefit to learn a little bit about it. Check out the link below, just Google it, and do a little research. It's actually pretty fascinating. So, but the goal of this is to make you aware of this concept of neurodivergence and neurotypical, and what it means for people in the workplace and people in the world. So once you get there, you can then begin to think, well, how can I make a much smoother transition, a much smoother process for people in the workplace who have neurodivergence? How can I work with them to not create obstacles, to take obstacles away from when we're working? So being aware that this exists and being sort of having some kind of education a little bit on how it works and what the limitations might be for some people with neurodivergence, and finding ways just to make sure that you're not creating further obstacles, that you're actually pulling obstacles away and helping the work process go a lot smoother. So, okay, there's the term. That's what I'm doing. I'm learning about this. I am by no means an authority, other than to say that apparently I've lived with these people my whole life, and I am grateful to them for the help they've given me in my life. And I think that's another thing I want you to know, is that if you find someone at work who you feel might be slightly odd or off, or there's a gold mine there. I'm telling you. They're great problem solvers, and so it's worth your while not to swerve around that anymore. That's where the gold is. Okay, so it's time for me to thank my subscribers and wrap this video up. Thank you so much to everyone who clicks that like button. Thank you to everyone who subscribes. Thank you to everyone who watches. Take care of one another. Find ways to build peace in the world and help out people. And I thank you for watching. Take an eye out for the next video. I'm Joe from Vox Victoria. Thanks so much. Bye.